When I collapsed at work, the doctors reached out to my parents. They never showed. I'd been lying in that stark, painfully bright hospital room for 3 days, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of a machine doing my breathing for me when my phone finally lit up. But it wasn't a call. It was an explosion. 82 missed calls and a message from my mother, Jennifer. Just 5 words. We need you. Respond now. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then another alert surfaced. An Instagram tag. My sister, Jessica, grinning, champagne in hand, clinking glasses with my mother at a luxury spa. The caption landed harder than the collapse itself. Girls trip. No drama. Where are you listening from? Tell me your country and current time in the comments. I'd love to see where this community is tuning in from. I stared at the phone. 2 notifications glowing side by side. A desperate command for help right next to a celebration of how peaceful their lives were without me. 82 missed calls. We need you. A champagne toast. No drama. Something inside me. Something I've been gripping so tightly for years that it had carved wounds into me. Didn't unravel. It snapped. Clean. Final. I didn't cry. I didn't hurl the phone. There was no familiar rush of fury, no sinking weight of disappointment. For the first time in my entire life, I felt nothing. A quiet, still, terrifying kind of calm. The drama wasn't me collapsing. The drama was my existence, my needs, my work, my life, anything that interfered with me functioning as their permanent emotional and financial life raft. I looked again at the text from my mother. Answer immediately. Not a plea. A command. The kind of directive reserved for a glitching device. Not a daughter in the ICU. Without thinking, I unlocked my phone. My thumb hovered over my favorites. Over Mom. Over Dad. Over Jessica. Then I kept scrolling. Past coworkers. Past long-lost friends. Down, down, down into contacts I hadn't touched in months, maybe years. And I stopped. Aunt Susan. My mother's older sister. The outcast, the problem, the woman Jennifer labeled cold, harsh, and impossible. Susan worked as a senior paralegal at a major law firm downtown, and she hadn't spoken to my mother in almost 10 years. Not since my grandfather's funeral, when she'd called my mother a vulture to her face. I'd been told my whole life to avoid her. She was the only person I could think of who wouldn't tell me to be nice. I tapped the call button. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice exactly the way I remembered. Sharp, direct, like she was answering her office line in the middle of the night. Maya. My reply came out as a cracked whisper. Hi, Aunt Susan. I'm in trouble. There was no gasp, no, oh my God, what happened? Just a pause. Then where are you? St. Jude's Hospital, room 402. I had a cardiac event at work. I collapsed. Another pause. In the background, I could hear the faint tap of a keyboard. She was already at work. The doctors called your parents, I whispered, shame scorching my throat. They never came. Of course they didn't, she said. Not angrily, not as judgment, just a matter-of-fact statement, like announcing the weather. I'm 40 minutes out. Don't sign anything. Don't respond to a single text. Don't talk to any doctor about long-term care or billing until I get there. Understand me? Yes, I said. Good. Hang up and lock your door if you can. The line clicked. I stared at the stark white hospital ceiling. The steady beep of the heart monitor suddenly sounded different. Not the rhythm of illness anymore, but the ticking of a countdown clock. I silenced my phone, ignoring it as it lit up repeatedly. Jennifer. Jessica. Michael. 83rd call. 84th. Just noise now. The silence in the room felt heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was the quiet before a major meeting. The hush in a war room. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone to rescue me. I was waiting for my lawyer. Susan didn't knock. She pushed the door open 40 minutes later, carrying neither a flimsy floral bouquet nor a get-well-soon balloon. In one hand was a heavy leather briefcase, in the other, 2 large black coffees. She looked exactly like I remembered from my grandfather's funeral. Sharp iron gray hair pulled into a tight bun, a dark pantsuit that probably cost more than my rent, and a face that said she was about to walk into a hostile deposition. Not an ICU. She set one of the coffees on my rolling bedside table. You look like hell, Maya, she said. Not pity. Just fact. Drink this. Black. That was Aunt Susan's version of a hug. She took the single, stiff visitor's chair, sat down, and crossed her legs. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She didn't ask what the doctor had said. She simply nodded toward my phone, still lighting up like a miniature Christmas tree on the tray. Show me. I unlocked it and handed it over. She read the "We need you" message from Jennifer. Her expression didn't change. She tapped the screen and opened Instagram, staring at the girls' trip without the drama photo for a long, cold 10 seconds. Then she set the phone down, screen facing up. Ah, she said, as if a doctor had just confirmed a diagnosis. She took a sip of her coffee. This is textbook, she murmured. You've been living inside a narcissistic family system your whole life, Maya. You just didn't have the words for it. Your mother, Jennifer. She's the queen. Everything, everyone. It all revolves around her. Your sister, Jessica. She's the golden child. She can do no wrong. She exists to be praised, funded, idolized. Her eyes cut into me, sharp enough to slice glass. And you, she said, leaning closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, you're the scapegoat. You're blamed for every problem, expected to fix every mess, and you take all the resentment with none of the credit. You're not a person to them, honey. You're a function, the family ATM, the pressure valve, and right now the machine is broken, and they're furious at the inconvenience. The word function echoed through the sterile room louder than the heart monitor's beep. It hit me like a punch to the chest because I knew, right then, she was entirely correct. I wasn't a daughter. I was a line item. The word unlocked a filing cabinet in my mind, the one I kept sealed under family obligations, the ledger. My voice was trembling, but the words began to spill out. $9.50, I whispered. Susan raised an eyebrow. What? $950. I said it louder this time. Every single month on the 1st, an automatic transfer from my checking account to hers, for her car payment, a luxury SUV I've never even sat in. What else? Susan asked, her eyes fixed on me. She wasn't taking notes. She was just listening. Jessica's influencer trip to Dubai last year, I said, feeling sick as I remembered. She called me crying, saying it was a business opportunity she'd lose if she couldn't book the flight immediately. That was me. That was all me. She called it a loan. What else? The home equity line, I said. The one my dad, Michael, took out years ago. He defaulted. I've been quietly covering the penalty fees for 18 months to keep them from foreclosing on the house. He just kept repeating, do it for the family, Maya. Just keep the peace. I listed it all. The tuition for Jessica's life coaching certification, the credit card bills I'd paid off, the endless, desperate last-minute loans that were never mentioned again. Every obligation, every compromise. When I finally finished, the room fell silent. I had spent my entire adult life holding that mess together, and now it was all spilling out. The only sound was the steady, rhythmic beep. Beep. Beep of the monitor. For the first time, hot tears stung my eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of shame. Why did I do this? I whispered, staring at Susan, desperate. Why did I let it go on so long? Why? Susan didn't answer. She simply sat there, holding her coffee, waiting. She knew this was my reckoning to voice, not hers. And then I answered my own question. The truth tore its way up my throat, raw and jagged, because I choked on it. I had believed that fixing their problems made me valuable. I had been terrified that if I wasn't useful, they wouldn't love me. That if I wasn't the fixer, I wasn't anything at all. I glanced down at my phone at the picture of my mother and sister, laughing, so happy, so free of drama. And without realizing it, my voice sharpened, the hoarseness gone, replaced by something cold and clear. That isn't love. It's just a job. I lifted my head and met Susan's gaze. A thin, small, terrifying smile crept across my aunt's face. Good, she said, because from this moment on, we're not family. We're a legal team. Now hand me that laptop. We need to do an audit. I was still attached to Infor Drip, but I had never felt more in command. Susan rolled the laptop over to me. You have the passwords, she said. You drive. I'll navigate. It felt like defusing a bomb. Okay, I said, my voice flat. First, the $950 auto transfer to my mother's personal checking account. Susan's fingers flew across the keyboard as I dictated the login information. Got it, she said. Scheduled for the first of every month for, my God, Maya, 7 years. She clicked the mouse and canceled it. One click. A simple digital amputation. Decades of assumed financial responsibility erased. Next, I said, my voice firmer. Amazon. My credit card is the primary payment on Jessica's Prime account. Susan found it. Her eyes narrowed. Maya, the order history. She's been drop shipping designer items for her influencer business and charging it all to you as business expenses. Click. Removed. The shared savings account, I continued. The one my dad, Michael, had set up for family emergencies, which only ever meant their emergencies. Accessing it, Susan said, transferring your entire balance to your new private account. Now, click. Revoking all shared access. We sat for an hour. Click, click, click. Each sound another lock snapping shut. Another chain breaking. The ATM was officially closed for business. It didn't take long. We were still in the room, the quiet hum of the heart monitor filling the silence when my phone, silent for 3 days while I'd been close to dying, suddenly vibrated violently, nearly falling off the table. It lit up again and again. 15 minutes, Susan noted, glancing at the clock. That set a new record. The first message came from Jessica. Not words, just a screenshot of her bank account. Balance, $41.50. It was immediately followed by a barrage of all caps texts. What the hell, Maya? My card just got declined at Lululemon in front of everyone. I look like an idiot. Fix this right now. I stared at the screen. Fix this. No, are you okay? No, where have you been? Just fix this. Before I could even process it, a voicemail alert popped up. My mother, Jennifer. I put it on speaker so Susan could hear. Her tone wasn't panicked. It wasn't worried. It was cold, sharper than I'd ever heard. Maya, I don't know what childish passive-aggressive game you think you're playing, but you are embarrassing this family. Jessica is stranded, and my card was just declined at the spa. At the spa. You've created a humiliating mess. Stop this pathetic tantrum and call me immediately. My heart, my ICU stay, the wires on my chest. Apparently all a tantrum. I glanced at Susan. She just sipped her coffee, calm, unshaken. Then, to complete the trifecta, a text from my dad, Michael, the enabler, the peacemaker. Longer, more reasoned. Maya, your mother is hysterical. You're causing so much drama. We're supposed to be on a trip. Whatever's going on, just call them and apologize. We're family. Please, Maya, fix this. I dropped the phone onto the bed. Counted the messages, 86 missed calls, voicemails, and texts in 20 minutes. Not a single one asked if I was alive. Susan nodded slowly. The machine is broken, she said, her voice grim. And the rats are scrambling. She closed my laptop with a soft, final thud. Good. Now they know we're serious. Phase 1 is done. The fight wasn't just about my feelings anymore. It was strategy. Susan, my aunt, was no longer just family. She was a paralegal on a mission. Sitting in the stiff hospital chair, laptop open, radiating boardroom energy instead of visitor room calm. They're panicking, Maya, she said without looking up. Panic people are sloppy. We will not be sloppy. We will be methodical. The first move, a formal cease and desist. Sharp, cold, legally brutal. Explicitly barring Jennifer, Michael, and Jessica from contacting any of my doctors, nurses, or hospital administrators about my condition. If they show up, she said, security will meet them. Your health is no longer their business. While she built the legal firewall, I built the financial one. My voice was still weak, but my words were precise. I called HR. Yes, I need to change my direct deposit information. Effective immediately. I rerouted my entire paycheck to a new high-security bank account at a credit union they had never heard of an account solely under my name. Next, my credit. Not a simple alert, but a full freeze. I went online, one by one, filing with all three credit bureaus. It was like dropping a steel gate. No one could open a credit card in my name. No one could take out a loan. No one could even check my credit without my explicit manual approval. From that hospital bed, we were building a fortress, brick by brick. And then Susan found it. She'd been digging into the mortgage on the family home. The one I'd naively co-signed years ago to save them from foreclosure. Maya, she said, her voice suddenly low, which felt far more alarming than if she'd shouted. What is this $150,000, Helic? I blinked. A what? A home equity line of credit, she explained. I never signed for that. Well, Susan said, turning her laptop toward me, the bank seems to think you did. It was taken out 6 months ago. My blood ran cold. 6 months ago. That was around the time Jessica had decided she needed to fly to Dubai to find herself as an influencer. Susan clicked through a few more screens and pulled up the PDF of the loan documents. She skimmed past the legal jargon, past the sky-high interest rates, straight to the last page, the signature page. And there it was, my name. But it wasn't my handwriting. The M was too round, too loopy. The Y ended in a flourish I had never used. It wobbled, awkwardly imitating my signature. But failing. I knew that handwriting. I had seen it on 1,000 birthday cards, passive-aggressive notes, and checks I'd been guilted into cashing. It was my mother's. They hadn't just leaned on me. They hadn't merely taken from me. They had impersonated me. They had forged my signature and saddled me with $150,000 in debt, while I was working myself to the brink of a cardiac event to support their lives. I looked at Susan. The shock drained away, replaced by something hard and dark. They didn't just take my money, I said, tasting the words like ash. They stole my name. The silence that followed was oppressive. Angry texts stopped. Calls ceased. A dead, terrifying quiet stretched for nearly 2 full days. This is the part one hate, I whispered to Susan as she packed her briefcase to leave for the night. This is the preparing for battle silence. They're plotting something worse. Susan paused, hand on the handle. Let them, she said. They're still playing checkers. We're playing chess. Get some sleep. But I couldn't. The silence coiled like a snake, striking the next morning. It wasn't a text. It wasn't a call. It was a sharp, official knock at my hospital room door. A man in a cheap suit, clutching a clipboard and a thick manila envelope, stood in the doorway. Maya, he asked, eyes on the paper, not me. Yes. You've been served. He handed me the envelope, had me sign the clipboard, and left. My hand shook as I tore it open. My eyes scanned the dense legal text, but certain words blazed into my mind. Emergency petition for temporary conservatorship, mentally unstable, emotional volatility, inability to manage personal or financial affairs. They were trying to have me ruled legally incompetent. My mother and father had filed a petition asking the court for full authority over my life, my finances, my medical choices, every decision I was allowed to make, arguing that my sudden erratic choice to cut them off was evidence that my heart episode had caused a severe mental collapse, making me a danger to myself. The room tilted. This wasn't a fight about money anymore. They were trying to wipe me out, to take my identity, my autonomy, my sanity, just to get access to the new bank account. My lungs emptied. Panic rose thick and suffocating. Susan walked in with a fresh cup of coffee. She saw the documents scattered across my bed. Then she saw my face, drained, terrified. She set the cup aside, lifted the petition, and read it. Her expression went stone cold. She read it again, and then she did something that scared me more than everything else combined. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was thin, cold, predatory, one that never reached her eyes. Oh, Jennifer, she murmured at the papers. You foolish, foolish woman. Susan, I choked out. They're saying I'm unstable. They're going to take everything. No, Maya, she said, lifting her gaze. And her eyes were sharper, brighter than I had ever seen them. They're not. They have absolutely no idea what they just triggered. She grabbed her phone. A conservatorship petition is a full disclosure of all shared finances, she said, her tone like a professor giving a lecture. They're required to list every financial tie to you to justify why they should be in charge. She tapped the document. And by filing this, your mother just gave us legal grounds to introduce that forged $150,000 Hellick in court. She began dialing. She just admitted guilt, Maya. By submitting this civil petition, she opened the door for us to file criminal charges. She just handed us the weapon, the ammunition, and a written confession. She raised the phone to her ear. This isn't a defense anymore, she said. This is a prosecution. Then she spoke into the line. David, it's Susan. They bit. Hard. Get the team ready. I'm sending you the forgery and the petition. File the motion to dismiss and send the criminal referral to the DA. Yes, today. She hung up. The next hours blurred together. Calls were made. Papers were filed. And then came the waiting. The phone rang just as the sun was dropping low, painting my hospital room in long orange streaks. It was my mother. I looked at Susan. She nodded once. Speaker. I answered. But it wasn't the cold, self-assured voice from the voicemail. It was a shrill, panicked, choking sob. A raw, animal terror I had never heard from her in my life. Maya. Maya. Oh God. Maya, you have to stop this. Call them off. Please. Call who off, Mom? I asked. My voice was oddly steady. In fact, I was the calmest person in the room. The lawyers. The police. They're talking about. Maya. They're talking about prison. It was a mistake. The signature. Just a mistake. You can't do this to me. You can't do this to your mother. We're family. I sat up straight. The first time I'd done it without pain. My four was gone. My discharge form sat neatly on the table. You forged my name, Mom, I said quietly. You stole $150,000. You tried to have me declared mentally unfit, so you could keep stealing. And you did all of it after leaving me unconscious in a hospital while you went to a spa. I took a slow breath. We are not family, I said. We are a criminal case. And then I did something I had never been allowed to do. I hung up on her. The legal fight wasn't a battle. It was a total demolition. Confronted with a felony forgery charge and undeniable proof from the Hellilock application, my mother's case crumbled. Susan, in what she later called a professional courtesy, offered her a plea deal. Jennifer accepted, pleading guilty to felony fraud. She was sentenced to 5 years of probation and ordered by the court to pay full restitution. $150,000. With the judge's signature, the debt was no longer mine. It was hers. Without my money keeping things afloat, the rest of their world fell apart just as quickly. The house, over-leveraged and with no one paying the mortgage, was foreclosed and sold at auction a month later. In a last-ditch effort, Jessica posted a tearful GoFundMe, black and white photo included, pleading for help with unexpected legal troubles and family medical bills. It might have gained traction, but Susan had already, discreetly, shared the court documents, conservatorship petition, and forgery evidence with a popular local gossip blogger. The story went viral. A post titled, "Influencer's Girl's Trip Funded by Forgery While Sister in ICU," spread like wildfire through the city. Jessica's sponsorships disappeared overnight. The comments that had once praised her became a wasteland of disgust. My father, Michael, the quiet enabler, wasn't spared. The scandal of his wife's criminal record and public shame hit his firm too hard. He was quietly let go during restructuring. They lost everything: the house, their jobs, their reputation. A few weeks later, I returned to my own apartment. I'd been discharged. The space felt safe, solid, mine. Susan came by one last time with a bottle of very expensive champagne. We didn't drink it. It just sat there. I opened my laptop and finally found the file I'd been searching for. The spreadsheet I'd kept for years, the one I had mentioned to her back in the hospital. It was the secret ledger of every loan I'd covered, every car payment, every emergency bill I'd handled. 9 years of my life meticulously itemized in painful rows of red numbers. The total at the bottom made me pause. This file was proof. Proof of my value. The record of my work, the logbook of my life. I looked at Susan. She nodded once. I moved my finger to the trackpad. Right click. Delete. I didn't get an apology. I didn't get acknowledgement. I didn't get justice. Not really. But as the file disappeared from my desktop, a lightness filled my chest, one that had nothing to do with my heart. It was the feeling of a weight I had carried so long I had mistaken it for my own bones. It was gone. I don't live in that city anymore. I moved. Months have passed. This morning I went hiking. I stood on a small mountain, inhaling air that tasted of pine, cold, clean, quiet. I'm not a fixer. I'm not a scapegoat. I'm not even a daughter the way I used to be. I'm just Maya. And for the first time in my life, that is more than enough. They say blood is thicker than water, but I'm learning peace is thicker than blood. If you've ever had to choose saving yourself over a sinking relationship, share your story in the comments. You are not alone.